3 kilometres south of the Blackwater, Turlough O'Brien and Dermot Sugach rested their army for the night. Foot soldiers made up the forward ranks. They bedded down wherever they could find high spots in the bog to lay a bedroll. The rear guard were near wooded areas, which offered greater protection from the wind and rain. The tents of commanders were set among their battalions. The nobles camped in the woods. Their numbers were so many that small campfires defined the pass for nearly 2 kilometres down valley to the south. The wind became brisk, and the night was full of misery. A poet of this age described the feelings of men that were exposed and possibly on the verge of panic on this cruel night that foreshadowed disaster. For an ihe I moin war. Ziele a moe nach biog, boor len a ngairen gui oor, os kyon an charmain, sa viach. Cold is the night in Moen war. Rain pours down that is not trifling. A roaring with which the fresh wind laughs, howls over the sheltering wood. O'Brien worried about the vulnerability of their position, so the men were roused at daybreak to pack and begin assembling for the march north. The morning was misty, cold, and drizzling rain. Fog laid over the bog like a wet blanket, limiting visibility to only a few meters. Men's voices and clatter were heard near and far as individual belongings, weapons, and cooking supplies were gathered. Restless horses could be heard in the distance. Commands from the rear echoed in the fog. As soldiers became organized and concentrated along the road again, they began to move. Suddenly, with stealth from somewhere in the valley, arrows whisked in out of the fog, striking the forward ranks. Arrows landed haphazardly in the chests, faces, and legs of soldiers. Men screamed in pain and terror. A young soldier, panicking, not knowing from which direction the next arrow would come, looked over to a friend to see him take one deep into his eye. Then another in the neck of a man next to him. Another randomly hitting its target, then another. Arrows finding their targets and panicked voices were heard in the mist. Only those near could be seen falling and writhing in pain, but screams could be heard from in front and from behind. O'Brien's ranks began to break and run in all directions. Before they could scatter far, the cavalries of O'Connor and MacMurrough rode in from the slopes, attacking from both sides, driving O'Brien's men back toward the centre of the valley. The men on horseback added their war cries and pounding hooves to soldier screams and to the chaotic commands of captains trying to rally their troops. The cavalry attacked with spears, riding out of the mist like killing banshees. They attacked with hammers and axes, striking fast and hard. O'Brien's men saw dimly through the mist and rain their friends from home being bludgeoned and gored to death. 2 of Dermot Sugach's men were seen being chased by horsemen, stumbling through the wet bog, sinking up to their knees with every stride as they tried to run. One was run down and speared through the back. The second fell to the soaken ground with a blow to the back of his head, his skull crushed by a woodblock hammer. The infantries of Connacht, Leinster and Meath followed the cavalry, running into the melee with brutal abandon. Battle cries of thousands were heard as the combined armies attacked O'Brien's men. The battle raged through the morning, becoming a hand-to-hand fight with the crude weapons, spears, swords, axes, hammers, killing by goring, slashing, hacking, and bludgeoning the enemy to death. Thousands died on the bogs of Moen War that morning. For nearly a square kilometre, pools of water that had gathered among the clumps of grass were red with the blood of fallen soldiers. 7,000 men of Munster were slain in the Battle of Moen War. It was a decisive blow to Turlough O'Brien's aspirations. He would never regain his power or influence, and never again contend for high kingship. The loss of nobles and common men, fathers, sons, and husbands in such high numbers, cast a pall of grief over Munster. O'Brien was banished. He was not given shelter in Munster, so he hid in Limnach, the area along the banks of the Shannon estuary known as Loch Limney. As he slipped away, he took many jewels with him, that is, 10 ounces of gold and 60 beautiful jewels, besides the drinking horn of Brian Boru, and he divided them among the Connacht chiefs, the treasures of Munster.